The story begins with our protagonist, Ryu Yamada, a typical delinquent who sleeps in class and always gets into fights. He is despised by everyone in school, even the teachers. While he was being scolded for his behavior, a girl named Irara Shiraishi hands the teacher a journal. She is pretty much the exact opposite of Yamada, getting top scores and having excellent behavior. Later that day, Yamada sees Shiraishi going up the stairs and tries to look tough. However, it backfires when he trips and falls on top of her. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself in the nurse's office, but something's strange. Yamada had lost his one and only companion. He rushes out of bed and looks in the mirror, only to find out that he has switched bodies with Shiraishi. Yamada runs as fast as he can towards the class, where he finds Shiraishi studying in his body. Everyone in his class is shocked beyond belief, even Yamada. He grabs her collar and drags her to the roof, where he tells her to explain what's going on, but she doesn't seem to know either. However, she thinks that if they replicate what they did before switching, which was fall off the stairs, they might be able to switch back. Yamada wants to do it immediately, but Shiraishi doesn't want to miss any more classes, so they agree to do it after school. Yamada wonders what he should do while he's stuck in her body when he realizes that it was the perfect opportunity. He goes through the urinals and of course, after some heavy blood loss, he was walking through the hallway when some side characters try to get close to him, which disgusts Yamada, but he tried to behave like Shiraishi and runs off. Later, he's chilling under some shade when side character 579 and her lackeys want to eat lunch with him, and Yamada decides to play along. After they eat, 579 asks her if she could copy her notes, but when he opens her notebook, he finds out that it has been defiled, which was the work of 579 and her slaves. It didn't end with that. Even her locker was filled with junk, which pisses him off. Later, he tells Shiraishi about when he saw that she wanted them to switch bodies immediately instead of after school and apologizes to Yamada for making him experience that. However, Yamada wants to switch at the time they promised and assures her that 579 won't be able to see a 580 after he's back in his body, which angers Shiraishi, who doesn't want his help. 579 sees them together and asks Yamada in Shiraishi's body why she was talking to Yamada, but he doesn't give her an answer and tries to leave, but he is knocked down by a bag. 579 threatens him by saying that Yamada will be kicked out of school if he even tries to touch her, but he gives her a death stare, making her move back. His plan was to stop just short of her face to scare her, but Shiraishi pops up in front of them, and Yamada accidentally punches her, almost making her cry, which creeps 579 out, and she runs away. After school, they go to switch bodies like they promised, and after all the emotional BS, they drop down the stairs, but nothing changes. They freak out and do it again, but get the same result. Yamada thinks about what to do when Shiraishi reveals that she might know a way for them to go back to normal, which was kissing, as it happened earlier that day when they fell. Yamada tries to think of something else, but Shiraishi doesn't listen and kisses him. Surprisingly, they go back to normal. Shiraishi gets up and goes to study like nothing ever happened. However, someone seems to have found out about their little secret. The next day, they switch bodies again, and Shiraishi tells Yamada to keep it a secret, which makes poor Yamada think that she only wants him to herself, but it was far from it. Now, Shiraishi takes the tests while Yamada does practically nothing. However, he is confronted by Miyamura from the student council, who is the most popular guy in school. He asks him to go to the roof with him, where he asks him if he is ready for the date later that day, which shocks Yamada, but he says that he's looking forward to it, making Miyamura give a weird look. While they were walking down the hallway, the gang confronted her again with even more charisma than before, even going for physical contact, but Miyamura put an end to it by pulling her away. After some tough talk, Yamada goes to fight but gets his sh*t beaten out of him, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. However, it was a setup made by Miyamura, who never asked her for a date. He deduces that it's Yamada in Shiraishi's body, which he tries to deny but is interrupted by Shiraishi, who also pretends, but it's of no use. Miyamura tells them to come with him and takes them to the door of a locked room. He wanted them to join the Supernatural Studies Club, which that room belonged to, but it was discontinued due to Miyamura being the only member, so if they joined, they'd have a private room to do their business. The room looked like ghosts had been partying there to kill their boredom. Miyamura asks them if they got each other's first kiss, which was unfortunately the case. Miyamura wants to find out if they can switch bodies with anyone they kiss and tries to do it with Shiraishi, but gets rejected. He has no choice but to go for Yamada, but he is as straight as they come. However, this cruel world forced him into something unthinkable. The theory was, however, correct, as they successfully switched bodies. While he was peeping at Yamada's mighty sword, a girl seemed to have overheard their conversation. After they switch back, Miyamura says he's going to find a girl who would even kiss Yamada, but Shiraishi tells him not to do that. Poor Yamada starts misunderstanding again, and Miyamura agrees with her. They both agree to join the club when Miyamura declares Shiraishi president, himself second in command, and Yamada has no position. The door suddenly opens, and a girl named Ito says that she wants to join the club. Since the policies say that anyone can join any club they want, Yamada and the group have no choice but to let her join. She wants to know which supernatural phenomena they have been researching, but they are embarrassed to tell her that they haven't even chosen which phenomena they want to study. Surprisingly, she is happy to teach them. First lesson: how to bend spoons, which was a total failure, just like other things like pictures of UFOs and ancient rocks. She seems to be very serious about the club, unlike the other people who are only here to use their room. Yamada is worried, thinking that it'll break her heart if she finds out the reason for the club's existence, so they have to pretend to be interested. Just then, she comes back with a bunch of things to decorate the room and tells Yamada to take out the trash, which he doesn't want to do but needs to do for the room. While he was coming back after taking out the trash, he found a notice on the board about the students who will be taking supplementary classes, and his name was obviously on it. After he gets back to the club room, he sees that Ito has left and Shiraishi is alone. He wanted her to switch bodies with him and take the supplementary classes, which she agreed to, but they were interrupted by Ito, who had more chores for Yamada. After being interrupted multiple times, the door opens again, and Yamada screams in anger, but it was actually Miyamura. When Ito comes back, Miyamura tells her that she needs to submit her form to become an official club member, so she goes to hand it in. Getting the perfect opportunity, they go at it, but she comes back in the worst possible second. Ito screams in disgust when Miyamura asks her if she submitted the form, but she says that the conference room was locked. She starts crying when Yamada tries to talk his way out, but she runs away after telling them that they'll pay for what they have done. The next day, Yamada finds a horde of students next to the board and looks to see what's going on when he sees this chart. Someone even gave pliers, which Yamada confiscates. Unsurprisingly, it was Ito's doing. She's just stated her plan for revenge for treating her like a joke. Yamada finds Shiraishi in the corner of the class alone, so he decides to put an end to it. Later that day, he calls Ito to the club room and tells her to take back the rumor that she spread, but she says that she won't do it and tries to leave. However, Yamada closes the door and tells her to kiss him if she wants to leave. Ito moves back and disagrees with kissing, but Yamada forcefully does the deed. When Ito realizes that something's wrong, Yamada knocks her out with one punch. Yamada sets off to tell everyone that she was joking, but they already know it was a joke. Even when he tells Shiraishi's friends, they say that they already know, as Ito has spread false rumors before, like alien invasions. After realizing that switching was unnecessary, Yamada goes back to get his body back, but Ito is missing his body. Yamada informs the rest of the trio, and they go back to the club room to think about what to do. Yamada seems to be confused, as people were avoiding Shiraishi earlier because of the rumor, but it was actually because she wanted to study for a test and told her classmates not to talk to her. After the confusion is cleared, Yamada sets off to find Ito. When he overhears people talking about how Yamada is acting weird, Mia and Shira catch up with Yamada and regroup in the club room, where it's revealed that Ito went to fight someone in Yamada's body. When they check Ito's body for clues, they find a text on her phone, telling her to bring money to Park 5. They scroll up and find out that the money was for the carp that she was showing earlier. Yamada quickly heads to the location, only to find Ito beheaded by some thugs. They demand the money, but he refuses and throws their trash back at them when one of the guys reveals that the reason she bought that stuff was to become popular in school. The thugs get a little too physical, so Yamada gets free and knocks their leader out, making the other two flee. Later that day, Ito apologizes for what she did and starts leaving, but Yamada stops her, saying that the club needs her, so she stays. Instantly, they start experimenting. Yamada switches from Shiraishi to Miyamura to Ito. After they switch until you don't even know who's who, the scene changes to the student council office, where the prez is talking about the Supernatural Studies Club, and a girl named Nene Onigiri declares that she won't let Miyamura become the next president. The scene changes to the club room, where Ito is angry about the president, who didn't approve of her budget for the club, because they need to perform club activities or make the room fancier. Nobody actually cares about that until she explains what they could do with a budget, and Yamada asks if they could get a microwave oven so that they won't have to eat cold food. When he gets a positive response, he grabs Mitamura and heads to the student council room to have a talk with the prez. Yamada kicks the door open and talks while yelling at him, but he isn't even fazed and even ignores Yamada, which pisses him off. He asks Miyamura if he has gotten loose, but he tells him that he ignores anyone who isn't a girl. Yamada snaps, puts his foot down, and gives him warnings to get his attention, but gets embarrassed by the prez. After achieving nothing, the duo comes back to the club room, where Yamada gets an idea. Yamada and Miyamura get into the bodies of Shiraishi and Ito to go talk to the president, but when they do, he finds out that the girls weren't actually the girls. It wasn't because he was super smart, but because he could tell by the way they smelled that they weren't girls, but Yamada and Miyamura. However, looking like girls was enough to get his attention, so they ask for a budget, and he surprisingly agrees, but they have to do a favor. It was about Shiraishi, who's the top student at their institution, but she doesn't want to apply for college, which could deal a heavy blow to the reputation of the school. Their job is to make her change her mind, and they'll be granted a budget. However, Shiraishi doesn't agree to their request, as she can study on her own and doesn't need to go to college. They try to push their request again, but she leaves the room with an angry look. In the rain, Miyamura, Ito, and Yamada think about what to do when Otajiri pops out with Yushio, who seems to know Yamada. The duo declares that Otajiri is going to be the next president, not Miyamura, and leaves. Ito seems to have many questions she wants answers to when Miyamura reveals that if he fails to make Shiraishi apply for college, Otajiri will be the next student council president. Miyamura asks for their help in convincing Shiraishi so they can all get what they want, but Yamada doesn't want to do it anymore. However, he can't back out now because the president would disband the club if they didn't succeed. Yamada is angry, but he's ready to win the game against the president. The next day, Yamada wonders what to do to convince her when she tells him to come to the clubroom with her. There, she wants him to switch bodies with a flustered look on her face, but when he does, it's revealed that she had a cold and switched bodies so that she could take the classes while Yamada suffers. To rest, the rest of the group took him to Shiraishi's house, and no one was around. To their surprise, her house and room seemed normal, completely different from what they imagined. Miyamura ambushes the underwear while Ito is looking at her album, and Yamada sees a picture of Shiraishi as a kid, forcing herself to smile. When they start to get too annoying, he kicks them out. After going back inside, his vision starts blurring, so he lays down on the bed, but right after, Shiraishi came back with his body and didn't seem happy. After arguing about their actions, they switch bodies again, and Yamada is shocked at how she does all of that for high school but doesn't want to go to college. Shiraishi says that she has nothing to do but study because she is alone, which shocks Yamada. Shiraishi wants to get some sleep, so she asks him to leave. Yamada apologizes for Ilrir and leaves. While coughing, Shiraishi remembers going back to the club room and seeing it empty, realizing how alone she is, but just then Yamada comes back and puts a wet towel on her head. He talks about how his school life was boring, how it's been fun lately, and how college will be fun too. He continues by saying that they should go to one together, which she agrees to, and the rain stops while the sun shines inside from the window. A day passes by, and the prez is shocked at the news of Shiraishi agreeing to go to college, and they finally get a microwave oven. The scene changes to Yamada complaining about going on a school camping trip, when Ito and Miyamura try to convince him that it won't be bad, and tell him to behave himself with Shiraishi and run off. Just then, Shiraishi pops up from behind and tells Yamada that she wants to talk to him. On the bus, Shiraishi's friends give her tons of things to eat, but it was actually Yamada in her body, which explains what happened earlier. Too bad for him, she gets car sick and ruins his reputation even more. When they arrive at their destination, their group mates invite Yamada and Shiraishi to go out on a walk with them, but a nap was what Shiraishi needed. After a not-so-exciting day for Yamada and the guys, they return to the hotel, where Yamada finds Shiraishi studying again. He wants to switch bodies, but she tells him to wait for a few hours. At the buffet, Yamada eats till he gets pregnant, when the girls bring more food. He politely rejects, when the girls say that it's time for their bath. Hearing this makes Yamada run to Shiraishi's room, but doesn't find her there. He tells the girls to wait, but they can't, as it was the only time they get to use the bath. With no other choice, Yamada gets in the bath and tries to lay low, but the girls ambush him like customers on a Black Friday sale. After being defiled from all directions, Yamada lays down to get some sleep, but the girls aren't planning on doing that. One girl asks him why he came along on the trip, as Shiraishi doesn't participate in any extracurricular activities. This makes Yamada go to Shiraishi to ask her the same question. It was because this time she doesn't have to face the girls, as she can just switch with Yamada, but he has had enough girl time for the day and forcefully switches bodies, telling her to go hang out with her new friends. After realizing that his body was hungry, he sets off to the cafeteria to get something to eat, but is confronted by Odajiri, who wants a talk with him. Outside, she shows him a picture of him going through Shiraishi's stuff, which was actually what Shiraishi was up to earlier when she disappeared. Odajiri tries to threaten him by telling him that she'll show it to the student council, but Yamada doesn't care, because Shiraishi can confirm that she wanted him to get her things for her. However, she has another, much creepy picture of him, which he can't talk his way out of. Odajiri tells him that she wants him to make sure that Shiraishi doesn't take the test that was going to be held after 2 days for her to keep it their little secret. Meanwhile, Ito and Miyamura are playing cards, when Yamada pops up and asks him why Odajiri doesn't want Shiraishi to take the test, which was to not let Miyamura become the next prez by ruining the school's reputation. Miyamura tells Yamada to not listen to Odajiri, as she's just going to keep using him if he listens to her, even for once, so Yamada comes up with the plan to switch with Odajiri and delete that picture. Later, he calls her out to execute the plan, and asks her to kiss him, but before she does, she gives him a warning about regretting his decision. After the kiss, Yamada doesn't switch bodies, and Odajiri head back to her room. Yamada explains everything that happened to Ito and Miyamura, who both kiss him, but it seems like he has lost his power. The duo tell him to rest and that they'll figure it out tomorrow. The next day, Shiraishi makes yakisoba for Yamada, but it turns out to taste horrible. Shiraishi thanks Yamada for helping her get out of her shell and make friends. Just then, the girls call her over to pack their things, and she says that she wants to go on another trip, just with the Supernatural Studies Club. On the day of the test, Shiraishi doesn't show up like Yamada told her to. When he goes to the club room, she sees Ito acting flustered and giving him the lunch that she made for him herself. Same was the case with Miyamura, which actually pretty disgusting. Miyamura and Ito start fighting over whose lunch Yamada's gonna eat, but he eats neither of them. He asks about why they're acting like that, and they reply by saying that they both fell in love with him, which was possibly because he gained the ability to charm people by kissing him, rather than changing bodies. After being totally abused by the duo, Yamada kisses both of them, and they return back to normal. Miyamura acknowledges how powerful his ability is, and how he can conquer all the girls in the school with it, even Shiraishi, but Yamada stops himself from going through that route. He tells Ito and Miyamura to hide the fact that he lost his body switching abilities from Shiraishi, as it can lead to her leaving the club. Proceeding to go ask Odajiri for answers, he is about to leave the room, when he finds Shiraishi on the door. She wants to switch bodies, but Yamada talks his way out, with the help of the rest of the gang. He convinces her to do it during lunchtime, and sets off to find Odajiri, but she's nowhere to be found. Finally, he spots some students talking about impressing her, but when he tries to talk to them, they run away, leaving a register titled as Top Secret. When he opens it, he sees that it's a grading register. The ones who dropped it go into the old school building, but at the same time, Shiraishi appears behind him and requests that they switch. However, he decides to dodge the request, which makes her ask him if something's wrong, which he doesn't answer either. Meanwhile, the droppers apologize to Odajiri for losing the register. However, instead of scolding them, she charms them instead, who call themselves the Odajiri Elite Force, which is basically a fancy word for personal slaves. After they leave, Yushio comes out of hiding, and is jealous on why she kissed Yamada. Odajiri is confused on why Yamada still hasn't come to find her yet, as she had used her charming powers on him. Even after going out in the open, she sees no sign of Yamada, which makes her think if her powers didn't work on him. However, her plan backfired on her, as it seems like she's the one who got charmed by him. Meanwhile, Yamada explains his situation to Shiraishi, who is relieved that it wasn't because he was getting bothered by her. Shiraishi asks Yamada to kiss her, even though he explained what would happen. However, when they do, they surprisingly able to switch. Shiraishi kisses him again, and tells him to never kiss Otajiri again, who was watching everything that had just happened. She runs away in disbelief, saying that he's immune to her power, but when Yushio grabs her shoulder, he sees her crying and hugs her to calm her down. Meanwhile, Shiraishi explains that Otajiri possesses the power to charm people, and Yamada has one that copies the powers of other people, while body switching is Shiraishi's power. Their conversation is interrupted by a flying kick from Ushio, who is angry that his crush left him for Yamada. They were about to fight, but we are given a flashback about the time when Yamada first joined his current school, and wanted to change, but is shocked after seeing Yushio in the same school. In class, he tries to fit in with some groups of students, but it doesn't go very well. Surprisingly, Yushio had the same problem. They were the only ones that were similar to each other, so they were like best friends. Back in the present, Yushio is getting his butt handed to him by Yamada, who asks him why he's so obsessed with some random girl. However, Yushio is more interested in knowing how Yamada made her fall in love with him, which Shiraishi explains to Yushio, and he stops fighting. Yushio says that if he kisses her again, then she'll be back to normal, so he was about to go get her, but Yamada doesn't want to, as he was blackmailed by the same people. Surprisingly, Yushio apologizes for his actions and promises to delete his photo, even making Otajiri drop out of the elections, and dropping on his knees. Unfortunately for him, Yamada still doesn't agree, but Shiraishi agrees in his stead. Yamada complains about it, but she tells him how Otajiri will never be able to love anyone again if he doesn't undo the spell, which makes him say that she's jealous, so she slaps him on the face. She continues by telling him to not be childish, and that he's doing this because he's angry with Yushio. After some convincing, he agrees to kiss her, so Yushio promises to meet them after school. Before he leaves, Yamada asks him if he kissed Otajiri, which he did, but he was still okay with it. We see another flashback of a girl being harassed by some thugs, who is saved by Yushio and Yamada, but she runs away. After that incident, Yamada was suspended for 3 weeks because 2 people claimed that he started the fight, who were the girl they saved and Yushio, because of which everyone started distancing themselves from him due to his bad reputation. Back to the present, they are joined by Ito and Miyamura, who fell sad for Yamada. When they meet Otajiri, she orders Yamada to turn her back to normal, but asks for a private talk with him, so everyone leaves the room. She starts off by complaining about how she could only think about him and couldn't even focus on class, but Yamada doesn't want to listen anymore, so he tries to kiss her, but she stops him, asking if she can keep her feeling for him, as they make her happy. However, Yamada still kisses her, because he could never return her feelings, making it unfair for her. After meeting up with the rest of the group, Yushio gives Yamada a notebook about the 7 wonders of their high school, which was about the witches of their school in the volume. Apparently, each have a unique power, but only 2 were enlisted in the first volume, and the rest are yet to be found. This was the beginning of their journey to find all the 7 witches, but Yamada doesn't seem very keen on the idea. However, one word from Shiraishi makes him change his mind. Ito invites Otajiri and Yushio to join their club, but they refuse. Yamada and Yushio forget the grudges between them, and everything is back to normal. A few days later, the school goes on a summer trip to the beach. However, while everyone is having fun by the water, Yamada is stuck taking his exams again because he failed. He isn't the only one. A few other students also failed, being 2 NPCs and 1 girl that seems like she's important. Later that night, the teacher hands them their results, and they failed yet again, they have to retake the exam. When he goes back to his club mates, he finds them playing games instead of searching for the next volume of the book that told them about the witches of their school. Yamada couldn't even enjoy his summer break, as he had to retake the test and find the other volume. However, Shiraishi proposes that she switches with him to take the test for him, while he goes enjoying at the beach. Meanwhile, Shiraishi is helping the other dudes, while being able to solve all the questions, shocking everyone, except for the greenhorn. After a long day of studying, the boys go back to their rooms, when Shiraishi was about to leave, but is stopped by the girl, who wants to be her friend. Shiraishi accepts her proposal, making her fall for her, or him. Even giving her a kiss, as a sign of friendship. Later, Shiraishi tells Yamada to go back to normal before the supplementary exams, and asks him if she has any relationship with the girl from before, whose name is Meiko Atsuka. Yamada says that he barely knows her, only going to summer class with her. Shiraishi then asks if she has kissed him before, which wasn't the case, leading to a conclusion that she's a witch. Otherwise, who would want to kiss Yamada? Also, they didn't switch bodies, which proves that when two witches kiss, their powers are cancelled out. What Yamada is actually worried about is that he'll have to take the test by himself. At the test, Otsuka apologizes for kissing him earlier, and warns him that something strange is going to happen during the test. After they take the test, unsurprisingly, everyone fails again, but nothing different happens like Otsuka said. She was about to leave, but Yamada stops her, asking what she did to him, which isn't answered by Otsuka, who runs away. The rest of the crew is also here, who tell them that the room where they could find the second volume will only open once the supplementary classes are over, meaning that Yamada and the other have to pass the exam, or they'll never get the other volume. It seems hopeless, until Yamada remembers what Otsuka said before the test. Her power might help them all pass, so Yamada now has to kiss her find out. Later that evening, Yamada gets the responsibility to clean Shiraishi's body. However, Otajiri mistakes Yamada for Shiraishi, and starts getting a little too close, but when Yamada acts differently, she realizes what actually happened. They start arguing, when Shiraishi comes back with a green light. Outside the hotel, they kiss again. However, even after he kisses Ito and Miyamura, nothing happens to them, which could mean that it's a power that takes after a certain period of time, so they go to sleep. In the middle of his sleep, Yamada hears someone screaming to him, claiming to be Otsuka, which wakes him up. Her ability was telepathy, through which she tells him to report for training the next morning. Yamada follows her orders and meets her the next morning, and it seems like her personality changes to that of an army officer while she using telepathy. Otsuka explains that the ones she kisses can communicate with each other, but Yamada is so dumb that he can't even think about talking. Yamada thinks about how it can help them pass the exam, but that's when it's revealed that the NPCs from before actually have a role in this show. They too can use telepathy, courtesy of Otsuka. Yamada now understands the plan. Someone has to know the answer for it to work. However, they think that Yamada is actually trying to look dumb and smart in reality. Yamada explains the situation to his friends, who think that it's over, but Miyamura had actually mastered telepathy. With his help, they all pass the exam, getting the keys to the club room. However, they only find an empty room, but they aren't even angry about it, as they weren't sure if the second volume was even there in the first place. Before they go and have fun on their last day of vacations, Otajiri asks Miyamura about who cleared the club room, which was the doing of the president. After having a day full of enjoyment, and a perfect night to round it off, Yamada reveals that he knows the name of the next witch, because of Otsuka's telepathy. At the entrance of the residence of the next witch, who is a shut-in. Otajiri was already getting info on her, so Yamada gets restless and decides to break in. However, the witch, Sorshima, comes back home, and wants them to help her rearrange her room. After they are done, they find her asleep on the couch, and Miyamura convinces him to kiss her, as it's the perfect opportunity. Listening to Miyamura, he gets closer to do the deed, but hears her call for his help. He asks Miyamura to give them some privacy, and when he leaves, Sarushima tells Yamada that she knew that he'd come visit her, as she can see the future. Yamada doesn't believe her at first, but she tells him her story, about how she saw that in the future, the old school building was on fire, and it was her fault. The reason she became a shut-in was because people would think that she's crazy if she told them that, but the reason she believes Yamada is because he was next to her in her vision, and was believed to be equally responsible for the fire. The problem is that it's not easy to change the future, as Sarushima has tried it before, but hasn't succeeded. Yamada thinks about it and asks her to kiss him, which she heavily misunderstands, but he explains why he said it. After they kiss, the scene changes to the school, where Otajiri is bragging about how she knows the name and has an idea about the power of the next witch, but what she doesn't know is that her skirt is up, exposing her panties to everyone. However, she only hits Yamada, which was the future that he saw, and it actually came to pass. Yamada then tells his friends about the fire incident, and through his drawing and what she just witnessed, Shiraishi deduces that he can see the vision from the perspective of one he kisses. After getting this information, Yamada sets off to ask Surashima, because, in the vision he saw, someone was watching Yamada and her next to the building, meaning that they might be the culprit behind the fire. Surashima tells him the name of the guy she kissed before getting the vision, and Yamada goes to his location, the arcade, to meet him. The guy was Sabaki Kentaro, who ignores Yamada's request to talk to him, so he grabs his collar and tells him that he wants a talk, which is responded in the same manner by Tsubaki. What he wanted to tell Yamada was that he likes Shiraishi, because all the girls throw themselves at him, while Shiraishi is the only one that ignores him. So, he wanted Yamada to make them meet the next day so he can confess his love, which Yamada accepts. However, to thank him, Tsubaki takes him to the old school building and starts cooking food, which confirms that he was the one who accidentally burned down the building. After he tells his friends about what he witnessed, they come up the plan that Yamada switches bodies with Tsubaki, but when they forcefully try to take his kiss, the beats them to a pulp. When they come back to the club, Sarushima had joined them, and had kissed Ito to see her part of the vision. Their plan to switch bodies with Tsubaki failed, so they have no choice but to make Shiraishi accept his confession. However, Miyamura has a better idea, which was to send Yamada in her body. When Tsubaki tries to confess, Yamada stops him and requests him to go shopping with him so that he won't be able to cook, as they saw the time the fire started in Ito's vision. Tsubaki the simp easily accepts the request, and they go shopping. Yamada thought that he only had to stall for time, but he gets a call from Sorshima, saying that the future has changed, and Ito and Tsubaki are with them in front of the burning building. At the same time, Miyamura calls Yamada, who is also in the mall, telling him to delay his confession in hope that it'll change the future. Yamada listens to him and tells Tsubaki that he'll listen to what he has to say tomorrow, as he has to go.
When Yamada runs outside, he realizes that he came to the worst place possible.
That's when Tsubaki pops up from behind, and confesses to Yamada, but before he can answer, Shiraishi walks up to him and kisses Yamada, continuing by saying that she's dating Yamada. This makes Tsubaki run back to the old school building, and Yamada follows him. He locks the door when Yamada tries to get in, but when he hears Shiraishi, he opens the door, and Yamada seizes this opportunity to switch bodies, preventing the incident. After all of that happens, Tsubaki WNATs to join the Supernatural Studies Club, mostly because he wants to keep seeing Shiraishi. Sarushima thanks Yamada for helping her. Later that night, after Tsubaki joins the club, Otajiri arrives to brag about how she knows the powers of Sorshima, but the boys are more interested in her boings. The next day, they are given the task of stopping the first-year students that are going against the school policies. In return they get the second volume of the notebook, and the yakisoba stand at the cultural festival. The first-year students used to be one of the most respected students, but they suddenly changed, courtesy of the next witch, Noa Takagawa, who can see people's pasts. She's probably blackmailing them into doing what she wants, so Yamada is ready to go take care of them. However, all his tough act goes away when he actually goes to meet them. Yamada requests a talk with Noa, who agrees. Yamada tells her to stop acting innocent, as he knows what she's been doing. But before he can use force, she starts seducing him, and he seems to be falling for her tarp. However, Yamada thinks that she likes him, and asks for a kiss, but she gets creeped out and goes away, leaving Yamada confused. After sulking in front of his friend, he gets angry and ambushes her outside the girl's bathroom, but she kicks his butt with a broom. Yamada tries another strategy, saying that he wants to join her group, but she still declines, until he tells her that he knows about her witch powers and about the other witches. Noa grabs his hand and takes him to a class, where she seems excited about knowing about the other witches, and tries to kiss him, but Yamada stops her, which makes her angry and she leaves. However, that night she orders her goons to do something for her, and the next day, they find the Supernatural Studies Club all torn up, and the first volume went missing. Yamada, seeing this, decides to take action. Meanwhile, it's revealed that it was the work of Noa's slaves, whose purpose of working under Noa is becoming witches themselves, which was what she promised them. The one Yamada went to meet was the president, to ask him about what Noa is after, which was to eradicate all the other witches from their school. The witches pass down their powers to other students when they leave, and the ones who inherit them have high level of anxiety related to their school, so her slaves are also suffering from the same anxiety, and she wants them to inherit the witch powers. Now that she has gotten the 2 volumes, she's now going to start the second phase of her plan. Yamada warns all of his friends about what he found out, so they make a plan to go for her before she does. Later that afternoon, one of Noa's goons goes to meet Shiraishi, forcefully kissing her and calling the others to pin her down. However, it was Yamada in her body, not Shiraishi, who kicks their ass. The others tie the group up, and tells them that they can't follow Noa's commands anymore, to which they reply by saying that she's only their friend, and doesn't force them to do anything. Confused, Yamada and the group decide to use them as hostages to negotiate with Noah. However, she refuses their proposal. Instead, she wants to exchange her goons for the 2 volumes of the notebook, but Yamada is the one to refuse this time. Too bad for him, his friends beat him up when they hear about what he did. The crew now realizes that the trio isn't being blackmailed by her, but they are working of their own accord, so they have no choice but to get them to their side by charming them. When the girl from the trio hears this, she promises to convince Noah to leave the witches alone if they let them go. They listen to the trio and they convince Noah, but before they leave, Yamada requests a talk with her. When they're alone, Yamada starts talking trash about them, which pisses Noah off, and she kisses him to show him the truth. In a flashback, he sees Noah's tragic past, but when he wakes up, he finds himself on a bed. Yamada immediately proceeds to go see Noah, where her ability was revealed, which was viewing a traumatic event from someone's past in the form of a dream. In Noah's case, it was being locked up in the storage room, until a teacher finally found her. However, it's even worse for her friends, as they were accused to doing things that they didn't do, but Yamada turns the mood around but revealing that she pissed herself in the room. It makes Noah try to leave the room in anger, but Yamada stops her, saying that he'll clear their name, which makes Noah cry and hug Yamada. After this happens, they are walking in the hallway, when Noah's friends start jumping Yamada. Noah tries to stop them, but they don't listen, so Yamada decides to take matters in his own hands by stopping them and giving an emotional speech, unintentionally rizzing Noah. The next day on the cultural festival, Noah seems to have completely fallen for Yamada, which makes everyone except Shiraishi jealous. The group has opened a fortune-telling stall, with of course, yakisoba. Yushio goes in to see his fortune, by none other than Dragon Gayaba, aka Yamada. He tells Yushio to close his eyes, and kisses him to see his future, which was an indirect kiss with Otajiri. Thanks to Sarushima's power, their club was able to make tons of money, which makes her happy. She requests Yamada for her power to be erased permanently, as she wants to fall in love with someone, which isn't possible if she keeps seeing the future every time she kisses them. Listening to her request, he visits the library to meet Shirei Chitamaki, who has the ability to steal the power of a witch. He takes Yamada with him to show him the power that he currently possesses, which was being invisible to the person he kisses. However, he refuses to Yamada's request to help Sarushima, as he'd lose the invisibility. When Yamada tries to be forceful, Tamaki kisses him, thinking that he's be invisible for him, but that doesn't happen. Tamaki looks impressed and starts a negotiation with Yamada, saying that he'll fulfill Yamada's request if he finds out who the current president is planning to choose as a successor. Yamada visits the student council room, where he is scared by the prez's secretary, who takes him inside, when the president comes back with accessories from the festival. Yamada requests that they talk in private, but the prez wants his secretary around at all times, so Yamada tells him what he wants to know in front of the girl. The prez refuses to tell him, so Yamada tries to use his charm power on him, but gets destroyed by Miss Secretary. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself tied up. The prez asks him his purpose for trying to charm him, but when he doesn't speak up, the secretary cracks his finger, which makes him talk, so she sets him free, revealing that she used to be Miss Invisible, but now she's normal thanks to Tamaki, so she wants to help Sarushima. However, the problem is that the prez still hasn't chosen a successor yet, so he decides on a game that whoever finds the 7th and final witch will becomes the next president. Otajiri and Tamaki set off on witch hunting while Yamada and the group doesn't care, until Sarushima accidentally kisses Yamada and he sees a vision. In the vision, he sees Tamaki becoming the next president, but something makes him run to the room and go for witch search. Miyamura asks Yamada about what he say in his vision, which was that along with Sarushima losing her power and Tamaki becoming president, Shiraishi had become his secretary, but she didn't seem happy with her job. Most importantly, that's when he reveals that he has fallen for Shiraishi, so for his sake, the duo starts searching all over the school, looking for the female troublemakers, who are most likely to be witches. However, they are still unable to find her. Most surprising of all, Tamaki isn't even searching, which makes Otajiri and Miyamura think that he's out of the picture, but Yamada understands that something's fishy, so he kisses all the club members, revealing that they've been under his invisibility all this time. This pisses everyone off, but Yamada seems to have a plan. Outside the school building, Yamada and Shiraishi are about to switch bodies, but he stops her, and seems to be stalling for time by saying random things, but Shiraishi does the deed. However, before she leaves, Yamada tells her all about his vision, and how he hated the sad look on her face when she was Tamaki's secretary. This makes her smile and request him to change the future. The scene changes to the Supernatural Studies Club in the park, where Miyamura reveals that he has a sister that's a year older than him, and used to attend their school. She might know something about the seventh witch, as she was the reason his sister stopped going to school. However, she isn't very welcoming, so they lock Yamada in her room. Her name is Leona, and she tells Yamada to leave her room with scissors in her hands. He finds an opening and switches bodies with her instead. Yamada tells her that if she doesn't answer his questions, then he'll strip in her body, but didn't expect her to do the same. However, she decides to listen to his story. After understanding what's going on, she decides to tell him what she knows, but she warns him, saying that he'll lose all his memories related to the witches if he finds out about the seventh, just like her friend. Therefore, he won't be able to live with Shiraishi. Surprisingly, he accepts, but his plan is to make his club members tell him everything after he loses his memories. Just as promised, the Prez decides to make Miyamura the next president after Yamada tells him the seventh witch's name. Later that day, Yamada says his goodbyes to Shiraishi and waits for the seventh witch to take away his memories. She appears before him with a fancy umbrella above her head. However, instead of doing some ritual to take his memories away, she starts talking about how she doesn't wear panties. She then proceeds to business, but doesn't do anything and starts to leave, but Yamada tells her that he still remembers the witches, making her give him a note about how it'll take about a day for the erasure to take effect. However, even after a whole day passes by, his memories were still intact, so he decides to go back to his friends to inform them. Shockingly, none of them recognize him, so he understands what the seventh witch actually did. The president tells him that no one but the president is allowed to know about the seven witches. Since witch powers don't work on Yamada, they had to do something else. Now their memories will never come back. Yamada looks at the sky alone, when Chitame pops out of nowhere, and reveals that he is the only other person in school whose memories haven't been erased. He wants Yamada to team up with him to take down the president, but he refuses. Chitame gets desperate and reveals how the memories about him got erased from the school after he eavesdropped on Yamada and the seventh witch's conversation the other day.
However, Yamada laughs at him, making Chitame mock Yamada for not having any feelings, which makes Yamada smashes the table in anger.
Just then, Shiraishi appears at the door and asks Yamada if he wants to join their club, but he refuses. However, she still smiles, making him ask her out. Unfortunately, she rejects him, as she already likes someone. Yamada is devastated by what she said, and wants to know who it is that she likes. The next day, he asks Ito about who Shiraishi likes, but she doesn't exactly remember who it is. However, she thinks that it might be Miyamura, as they met like a couple from a movie. Yamada has had enough, so he decides to jump the president, but it doesn't go as planned. He begs the president to tell him how to get the people their memories back, who is busy, as the witches are causing problems all over the school. The witches had changed after meeting Yamada, but now they've gone back to their old selves after forgetting him. After getting no help from the president Yamazaki, he is confronted by Otajiri, who knows that he got rejected by Shiraishi, and proposes that she can help him if he meets her after school. Just like Yamazaki said, she's back to being a thought. Later, he goes to meet her, but he's late, making her angry. As punishment, she wants him to kill her, which he does without hesitation.
However, Shiraishi somehow spawns right next to them while they were kissing. She runs away and Yamada runs after her to explain the situation.
Shiraishi says that she likes someone else, but she doesn't understand why she got angry over what happened and why she has feelings for Yamada. Yamada explains how the memories of everyone were erased, but she doesn't believe him, so he tries to kiss her to prove that he's right. However, she doesn't let him do that and leaves. The next day, Yamada kisses Miyamura to make him spill the beans, but the charms makes him want to spill other things as well, so he make him go back to normal. Just like Yamada, Chitame had no luck either. However, when things were looking hopeless, Otajiri comes back to kiss Yamada again to remove the charm. Surprisingly, she remembers everything again, leading to the conclusion that his kiss can cancel the seventh witch's power, but it only works on witches. Yamada is thankful that he has someone else who knows about what happened, and it seems like she has fallen for Yamada. Later, she meets Yushio and uncharms him, however he still likes her and confesses, as he genuinely in love with her, but she rejects him. Yushio asks her one last question, which was about where she's going and if it's worth more than what she's been working for. The answer was yes, and she has decided to stop charming people, as it won't help her become the president. Meanwhile, Chitame and Yamada were talking, when the seventh witch appears behind Yamada, stating that she won't show any mercy if he tries to change what has happened, the reason being that if all 7 witches gather in one place, they'd be able to grant any wish. Yamada informs Otajiri about what he found out, and that the 7th witch will be back to erase her memories again. Otajiri, upon hearing this, tells Yamada to come back to undo the spell again, but he refuses to do so, as it'd get her in trouble. However, before he can hang off, she wants to tell him something important, but Yamada tells her to wait after he gets everyone's memories back. Surprisingly, the next day, Otajiri's memories of Yamada hadn't disappeared, which is explained in the next scene where the 7th witch reveals that her abilities don't work on the same person twice.
Now, President Yamazaki is convinced that Yamada can't be left alone.
Meanwhile, the trio gather in the storage room for a meeting, where they think that the only way to make things go back to normal was to gather all the witches and make that wish. Otajiri remembers being gathered with the other witches once, but doesn't know the exact details of what happened. After hearing this, they decide to gather all the witches, but the student council had places a flyer about the kissing bandit, who was actually Yamada. The council is a step ahead, so Yamada has to work quickly. Shiraishi, who was next to him, asks if he's the kissing bandit, so he tries to talk his way out, but she doesn't want to listen. She wants him to walk home with her, as she wants his advice on something. Miyamura is going to leave the club, because he's going to be the next president and won't have time for club activities, so Shiraishi wants Yamada to tell her what she can do to stop him. Yamada assures her by saying that he's going to punch Miyamura so that he doesn't leave. Shiraishi smiles upon hearing this, making Yamada blush and try to leave, but she stops him, saying that he can kiss her. Meanwhile, Otajiri finds the keys to the place where the witches had gathered, and gets in, but Yamazaki was following her. The scene changes back to Yamada and Shiraishi, and they are about to kiss, but the secretary stops them. Another scene change and Yamazaki wants Otajiri to stop Yamada from what he's doing. In exchange, he'll make sure that she gets Yamada, who she likes. Chitame only saw the last part of this discussion through the window. The next day, he asks her about what happened between Yamazaki and her, and she tells him that he gave her a deal and she refused. Otajiri starts crying, saying that she wants things to stay as is, but Yamada will never be her man, as he belongs to Shiraishi, so she wants him to be happy. The trio then get everyone except Shiraishi's memories back. Now, Yamada only has to kiss Shiraishi and Seonji, but everything about her is a mystery. Nobody at school knows her, not even her classmates, and has no visual records, so they decide to go for Shiraishi first. However, Yamazaki had invited the witches along with Chitame and Yamada to a meeting, and they'd be expelled if they didn't participate. Meanwhile, Yamada goes to kiss Shiraishi again, and the scene changes to Chitame and Otajiri being confronted by Seonji, who reveals that the reason why there are no records of her is because of power. Before she leaves, Otajiri requests her to come to the meeting that was going to be held, but she refuses. Chitame asks her why the meeting is even being held, to which she reveals that it's to get rid of Yamada, who has become a nuisance. Meanwhile, Yamada was about to do the deed, but he finds out that the secretary was the one in Shiraishi's body. Yamada quickly visits Yamazaki and asks where Shiraishi is, to which he replies by saying that she's been suspended due to being caught kissing another student. Later, Yamada visits Miyamura to take him to the secretary's house, as Shiraishi's in her body, but Miyamura refuses. However, Leona invites him in and laughs at what's happening to him. She tells him that he can't make things go back to normal, so he should just move on. She continues by saying that something's odd about the witch ceremony, when they are interrupted by Chitame and Otajiri. Leona explains that Chitame shouldn't have been invited, as he isn't a witch, which only means that Yamazaki has a way to make Chitame return the secretary's powers. Now, they have no choice but to take care of the 7th witch, which is not going to be easy. As the trio was about to leave, Miyamura thanks Yamada for making his sister laugh. Later that day, they meet Seonji, and ask her relationship with Yamazaki, to which she says that they're very close. However, Yamada thinks otherwise, as he would have let her switch bodies with Shiraishi, instead of his secretary if they were close. Claiming that her boyfriend doesn't trust her. This makes her throw objects at Yamada, while telling her backstory about how Yamazaki was the only one that cared about her. Yamada understands how she feels, but he tells her that she will go back to being alone with Yamazaki if she doesn't help them, so she agrees on the condition that they bring Leona to her so she can erase her memory. However, Yamada refuses her offer, and Seonji does the same. Later that day, Leona texts Yamada, telling him to meet her. When the trio goes there, she already knew that Seonji wants to erase her memories, so she agrees to going, but before that, she explains her backstory. It all began when she was in school, and was a member of the Supernatural Studies Club, along with Yamazaki, who wanted to become student council president so that they could keep the club going. However, when he found out about the seventh witch, his memories about Leona and the club were erased. Having no other choice, Leona gets ready to go with them, but Yamada tries to stop her, saying that he doesn't want her to lose her memories. However, she wants to forget, as she doesn't want to see Yamazaki like how he is right now. After they meet with Seonji with Leona, she takes her memories, but before she did, Leona said that she feels sorry for Seonji, making her leave in anger. Leona goes to visit Yamazaki before she forgets, who doesn't remember her. However, when she calls him old friend, a tear drops down his face. The next day, the witch group kidnap the secretary in Shiraishi's body, while Yamada visits the secretary's house to meet Shiraishi. She hugs him, saying that she's scared, but he assures her that she'll be fine. All of the witches are gathered at the specific location and draw a magic circle to start the ceremony, but when the secretary is untied, she escapes. That's when Yamazaki arrives. However, he's only here to observe, as he realizes that his memories have been erased once, so he doesn't want anyone else to face the same fate. The ceremony begins and Yamada sits in the circle while being surrounded by the witches, when suddenly, time seems to have frozen for everyone except him and Seonji. She explains that he needs to make his wish and everything will go back to normal, but before he does, he asks her if she's happy with her witch powers, to which she is, but has to choose someone to inherit her powers, and doesn't want them to experience the same things she did. After listening to her, he completes the ceremony. The next day, Yamada visits his club, and they still don't seem to remember him, is what he thought, but they were only joking. They even throw him a welcome back party, which everyone, including the president, attend. Yamada had something important to say. It was that he didn't wish for everyone to get their memories back, but for the witch powers to disappear from their school forever. Everyone is shocked at first, but thank Yamada, as it was what they all wanted. After a happy and wholesome day, two lovebirds are at the roof, where Yamada confesses his love for Shiraishi, thinks that she'll reject him, as she said that she already had a crush on someone. However, the one she was talking about was Yamada. They have their own wholesome moment, and that's where the first season of this anime ends. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.